All right. So we are in chapter 13, and it's about nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. And today we'll be reading Shloka 13.33. Yatha sarva gatam sokshmyad akasham nopalipyate sarvatravastito dehe tathatmanopalipyate. Translation: the sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul, situated in Brahman vision, does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Okay, all right. So this is this discussion. Lord Krishna is explaining it to Arjuna, uh, the series of questions he has had, and so there's an analogy being made here of the sky for its subtlety. Soul is being compared. But before we get into that, we'll have um, a brief background of couple of few verses to understand this thing, what happened. So in the previous verses, as Lord explained it to Arjuna, the living entity, although infinitesimal, minute, and spiritual, is part and parcel of the supreme absolute truth, supreme absolute truth, which is spiritual. That is, individual spirit soul is qualitatively same as the supreme absolute truth, but quantitatively the living entity is infinitesimal. So both are spiritual, but still there's a difference. Lord is, this our spirit soul, the Jivatma, is qualitatively same as the super soul or the supreme personality of God's super soul we have next to the soul. But quantitatively, it's different. Spirit soul is infinitesimal, very minute, tiny, whereas Lord is absolute, encompasses everything. So living entity soul, although spiritual, chose or willingly accepted material existence. That is, it chose this material world, and since then has been situated differently than in its spiritual existence. So there is a spiritual existence and there is a material existence, and we all chose to be in the material world, experience the material existence, although we are supposed to be in the spiritual existence, and that is our real nature. But now we are experiencing duality of the material existence. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in His Paramatma manifestation everywhere, in every living thing. So Paramatma feature of the Lord is all pervasive. It is, we experience it as a localized Paramatma. In our body, the Lord is there as Paramatma, Super Soul, whereas He is also in everything, every atom. He's everywhere. He's all pervasive. But He's also giving us association, company, and that is as a localized Paramatma. So the mind is generally addicted to sense gratifying processes. So because we are in part of the material existence, our mind, because of the duality, because of our desires, material desires, it wants to gratify its senses. So, but when the mind turns to the super soul, one becomes advanced in spiritual understanding. So that is how it is. So that is like endeavoring to return to our true nature, trying to be in the spiritual existence, to go back to Godhead. So that is, we are making progress towards our real nature. So that is how it is. But this material body is made of by the material nature under the direction of the super soul, and whatever activities we experience or we go through in respect to one's body, in respect to our body, are not the soul's doing. Whatever one is supposed to do, either for happiness or for distress, one is forced to do so because of the bodily constitution, because of the material bodily constitution. The spirit self, however, is outside of all these bodily activities. So the spirit soul, although in this body now entrapped, is not anyway amalgamated or mixes with the material body. Although in this body, still it is aloof, although encapsulated, although embodied, still is different from the material body and its related activities. The material body is given according to one's past desires, karma, and desires. Whatever material body we have, it's because of our past doings. We also had desires and karma. So Lord gave us a body according to that, and so we can continue to fulfill our desires. And to fulfill these material desires, the living entity soul is given a particular material body from among 8.4 million species of life. And this is how we, with this body, perform activities to fulfill our desires. And this goes on again and again until unless we achieve spiritual perfection. So this material body is a machine, a material machine designed by the Supreme Lord. Why? So that we can fulfill our material desires. All living entities, they can fulfill their respective material desires. Because of these desires, one is put into difficult circumstances to suffer or to enjoy. So this goes on. We experience these dualities, happiness and distress, suffering and enjoyment, and it's all because of what we do with this material body. What we experience is because of our mind, material mind. This transcendental vision of the living entity, when developed, makes one separate from the bodily activities. So once a person starts having this makes spiritual progress, and he has this realization, this transcendental vision, what's going on, and when there is some maturity, one realizes that one is separate from bodily activities, and that person with that vision is actual seer. So that is how it is. And so a living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body, but actually the living entity is eternal. He is not born. The soul is not born with this material body. Soul has always been there eternally, whereas the material body comes into existence and then disappears, and there is a cycle of birth and death, and so on. This goes on till the person continues to have material desires. And in spite of being situated in the material body, he is transcendental. The soul is transcendental and eternal. Thus, he cannot be destroyed. When the body is destroyed, the soul never gets destroyed. So by nature, the spirit soul is full of bliss, just like the Supreme Lord. The soul is full of bliss. The Jivatma, the soul is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Although it appears to be so, it's because of he's being forced to do so after taking the body. It seems to be like that, but soul is different from the material body and the activities performed by the body. Once the soul takes the body, it performs material activities, and it looks like the soul is doing these material activities, but he's just forced, being seated in this material machine, and because of this material bodily conception, it appears that he is the one, the soul is the one performing activities, but it is not. By nature, the soul is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. So that's how it is. Therefore, the activities performed due to his contact with the material bodies do not entangle him. So if that is the realization, once person realizes that he is not the body, he is the soul, and the activities, these material activities performed are not the soul's activities, but are being performed because of the contact with the material bodies. So that person is not entangled. So that is like we are making progress towards, we are making spiritual progress. So as mentioned in this particular verse, the analogy is being made. So as mentioned earlier, there are 8.4 million species of life, some superior to humans like demigods and some inferior such as animals. And here in this particular verse, that is 13.33, the living entity soul, the Jivatma, has been compared to the quality of ether. So Lord Krishna replies to Arjuna with an analogy of ether, which atomically is existing everywhere, all through Prakriti, the material nature, the material substratum, pervading physical existence, and as such is not contaminated or modified by any other object. So sky, ether, akash is subtle compared to other gross elements like earth, water, fire, air, and mind, intelligence, ego comprise our subtle body and are more subtle than air. Soul is even subtler than our subtle body. So that is how it is. So this analogy is being made. Just as the air enters into water, mud, stool, anything it comes in contact, and whatever else is there, still it does not mix with any of these things. So if it's if the soul is passing by a valley of flowers, sorry, if the air or if the air is passing by the valley of flowers, it will carry away that aroma, but it will never mix. Once further, if there's something else, some dirt, mud, stool, it might appear that it is carrying that aroma, but it further, once it continues to blow further, and it will take whatever it comes in contact, but it will never mix with it. So that is how it is. That is how subtle the air is. And ether is even subtle, mind is subtler, and soul is the most subtle of all these. So similarly, the living entity, soul, Atma, even though situated in varieties of material bodies, like from among 8.4 million species, is aloof from them due to its subtle nature. Like I just mentioned, the soul is even subtle than any of these material gross elements or subtle elements like mind, intelligence, ego. Soul, the soul Atma, although abiding within the physical bodies of all jivas or embodied beings, is unaffected and not implicated, not contaminated, and not modified at any time by the activities or actions performed by any jiva, actions of the physical body, and never subject to any reactions of merit or demerit associated with the actions of the physical body. Right? So a living entity, although forced to accept a particular type of body due to its desires and karma, experiences a certain type of conditioning, is always aloof from these varieties of bodies it takes and experiences it takes and experiences temporarily. So, like mentioned earlier, although it is aloof, but because of conditioning, because of material existence conditioning, after taking this material body, the mind, under illusion, a certain gradation of illusion, makes us feel the pleasure and pain, the dualities of this material nature. So there are different kinds of people you might come across in society. Some who are very spiritualized or somewhere in between, they'll be always maybe calm in any kind of situation, any kind of adversity or difficulty, or they'll be able to see things as they are, as things are, in all kinds of duality, in all kinds of happiness and pain, pleasure and pain. They will know that they are soul, and what they are getting is because of the karma and the desires they have had. But now they want to make spiritual progress, so God will guide those. God will reciprocate accordingly with those personalities, and so that they can make progress further. And one of the things mentioned to make progress or emphasize in scriptures is to have a guru and have association of devotees, and other activities like visiting temples where you can have association and prasadam and hear discourses and slowly and steady make progress. And so this is the emphasis again and again, to have a guru, to hear from the bona fide guru. So the guru takes the responsibility, to empower or to guide, and so that the person makes spiritual progress. And surely, if not in this life or next life, we will continue to make progress. If successful in this life, the person can go back to Godhead. Else, it is certain that once one takes to spiritual life, he will, or he or she will certainly make progress. Wherever that person leaves, whatever progress, spiritual progress that person makes in this life, he will continue from, exactly from there. Not that he has to start again, just like material life. Spiritual progress once made, the person continues to make, in next life also, further from where he left. So that is how it is. That is how great it is. Mercy of Krishna and mercy of Guru. We can all, we have this, Gita Gyan thing going on for a very long time, and people are listening and making progress. So that is how it is. So therefore, it is impossible, but this is how it is. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body, this material body, and how is it he is out of it? How is it he is aloof from it, all in this body, even after this destruction of the body. So, so this is how it is. This is the subtlety or subtle nature of the soul, the most subtle of all these. What's in the material body, most subtle than all the gross and subtle elements. Soul is more subtle than that. So this is how it is. And again, with scriptures and gurus and association of Vaishnava devotees, one can make steadfast progress in spiritual life. So prasadam is another thing. So continue to hear these Gita Gyan morning sessions, shloka recitation and chanting to make progress. So I thank you all, Prabhuji Matajis. Thanks for joining this Gita Gyan morning chanting and shloka recitation session. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Matajis. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Dandavat pranam, Prabhuji.
Dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Shri Hari Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat pranam, Mataji.